Okay, well, it is 12 o'clock, so we are going to go ahead and get started. This is Michelle McNerney, as always, with your local workforce development area leadership office hour. So I did get the PowerPoint updated this time to reflect the correct name of our meeting going forward. So we do not have a very full agenda today, so hopefully we can get done a little bit early, or if you guys have any topics or questions you want to discuss, we will definitely have time to do that. So just as a reminder, my contact information for any new members that are joining us today, in case you don't already have it. Just quickly what the purpose of our office hours is, which is really just to provide an opportunity for you all as local workforce development area leadership to ask questions, seek clarification, and provide us an opportunity from IWD to provide guidance, provide technical assistance, and then just to let you all connect as peers and discuss issues, concerns, questions together. So today's objective, again, are not a lot. We are going to talk about local area performance negotiations. And then after that, any other questions or topics that you might wish to discuss. So before we get into the local area performance negotiations, I do want to spend some time on our task slide. So I have updated it. This is the first time that this slide has changed in a really long time. So if you'll notice, I've updated the slide topic to be the local workforce development area leadership, key deliverables and principles, and then timeline. And I added a column to say who the responsible party is, because as we've been discussing, as we've gone through training with the local boards a long time ago, last year when we went through training with the chief elected officials, now that we, for the most part, have WIOA compliant boards seated in all of our local workforce development areas, sort of the lion's share of the work gets shifted to the local board. And then the CEOs really can take over and become into that final oversight and approval category of responsibility, while the local board actually kind of does the heavy lifting. So right now, the next several key tasks that are up will fall to the local board, and some of those in conjunction with final approval from the CLEO or the CEOs in the local area. So just to go over this slide really quickly, I believe that you're all well into working on your RFPs to do a competitive procurement for your direct service providers. This would be your WIOA Title I adult, dislocated worker, and youth service providers. Again, you really want to have that process completed by December 31st so that those providers can be in place for January 1, because the old contracts with the existing service providers ends December 31st. So in order for there to be as seamless as a transition as possible, you'll want to be getting that completed in the next month. So that is key task number one. The next item on the list is the selection of that one-stop operator using a competitive procurement. You notice I have a question mark in the deadline because we talked about this the last time, but right now we are not focusing on that one-stop operator procurement. Some local areas are moving forward with that, which is great. If you haven't started, it's not something that you need to worry about starting right now. We really want to get through the procurement of the service providers first, and then we will continue to provide guidance on the one-stop operator procurement here in the coming months. The next task that'll be completed by the local boards is local area performance negotiations, which is what we're going to discuss today. You can see the deadline for that is going to be February 28th, 2021. So I'll give you some more information when we go over that topic. After that, you'll be working on completing your local plan. Right now, we have a tentative due date of April 15th of 2021. You can see that responsible party is the board, because they'll do the most of the drafting of the local plan, but they do need to have final approval from the CLEO. And then after that, one of the next things that you'll really begin to do is develop and approve a board budget for program year 21. So it sounds crazy to be talking about program year 21 already, but that will begin on July 1st. And so there is work to be done before July 1 to make sure that you're prepared. And so I've put in a date of May 15th on here as an estimate. A lot of that budgeting will depend on when we receive notification from the federal level of what the state's budget is, so that at the state level, we can determine what each local area's budget is. And then you have your overall budget amounts, and you can sit down as a board and with your CLEOs and decide how you want those funds to be expended and set a budget for yourself. In conjunction with that, then once you have a budget, the next step would really be to execute contract extensions or modifications for your service providers. Most likely, especially if you followed the template that we provided, the RFP that you're going through right now is a little bit of a weird one. It's transitioning, right? So the contract that will result from the RFP will really probably be from January 1st of 2021 through June 30th of 2021. If you set your contracts like that, then what you would do is you would execute a modification or an extension of that contract for program year 21, which is July 1, 21 through June 30th of 2022. So you would set the budget and then you would use that to execute that contract extension. Again, with final approval from the CLEOs. Now, I do just want to point out that a lot of these key tasks that are on here are things that I've listed on here so that you're aware of as things that you need to do, but these are not things that we will be doing with you. This is when you really start to sort of take over and do this work yourself. So does anybody have any questions about these key tasks or the update to this chart before I move on? Okay, doesn't seem like it. So let me go forward and let's talk about local area performance negotiations. So just as a little bit of background, every 2 years, the state is required to negotiate performance levels for the state with the Department of Labor. And typically that 2-year cycle follows the cycle of the state plan and the timeframes for the state plan. So last spring in May of 2020, we negotiated performance for program year 2020 and program year 2021. Now, what's supposed to happen following that state level negotiation is that we then turn around and we negotiate local area performance result levels with each of the 9 local workforce development areas. Well, most of you know, in May of 2020, we were well aware and well on our way to having a new local workforce development area structure effective July 1st. So it wasn't really, it didn't behoove us to go ahead and do those negotiations at that time. And so now we've spent the last 5 or 6 months really working to get these 9 local areas into compliance and get them into a place where we can complete these negotiations. So I have been working with the Department of Labor to determine a time frame for us to complete local level negotiations with you all. And I will say that I spent some time last week doing some negotiating myself with the Department of Labor. And I asked for, they say shoot for the moon and land on a star or something like that. So I had asked for us to be able to complete negotiations next June to be effective July 1st. They weren't too keen on that idea. So we settled on February 28th as being our due date to have local area performance negotiations done. So, which is better than December 31st, which is where they wanted me to start. So we negotiated and kind of landed in the middle, sort of. So what you're looking at here is a chart of all of the different performance level, goals that you will have to negotiate for. So there's 18 goals total. 5 for adult, 5 for DW, 5 for youth, and 3 for Wagner-Peiser. And they're the same goals because under WIOA, we know that the performance expectations or the goals that are set, the measures that we follow are consistent not only across the Title I programs, but across all WIOA core programs. So the Title II adult education and literacy, they're reporting out on these same measures. Title IV voc rehab programs, they're reporting out on these same measures. So it's consistent. So these were the state level rates that were negotiated for PY20 and PY21. And this is important for you because these will provide us the basis for going forward with performance negotiations with the local level. So let me just quickly go over what the process will look like. The process for doing performance negotiations is based off what's called a statistical adjustment model, or a SAM. You'll hear it referred to as a SAM. So the first step in this process is that IWD at the state level is working to develop a statistical adjustment model, actually 9 of them, for each local workforce development area. And really beyond that, we're really doing 4 for each local area because each local area will have a SAM for adult, DW, youth, and Wagner-Peiser. So we're really working to produce 36 different statistical adjustment models. And I'm going to show you an example of what that looks like here in a minute. But again, what we'll do is we'll provide you those statistical adjustment models. It's an Excel spreadsheet that has a ton of data built into it that you can adjust and play around with. And then you'll use that model to propose level of performance to IWD. So let's take, for example, let's just take Western Iowa as an example, and let's take the adult employment rate second quarter after exit as one of the measures. So that statistical adjustment model may show that for Western Iowa, based off of their past history, they should be able to attain 76% of their participants being employed second quarter after they exit their programming. And so, we'll use that model to come to that determination and adjust. And there might be a reason in Western Iowa that you think that the historical data isn't accurate, and that you think it should be lowered, or that you think you can perform better, or all of those things. So we'll have a discussion about that. But the first process is you guys locally will use the SAM to propose to IWD what you believe your expectations or your goals should be. You'll turn those into us. IWD will use that information from you, along with the information that we have in the statistical adjustment models, to prepare, and then we'll come together, we'll have a meeting, and we'll discuss it. And we'll go over each measure individually, and we'll land on a negotiated rate for your local area. One thing that we'll have to keep in mind is that the state levels have to be maintained, right? So, if there were 3 local areas in the state, and we were looking at dislocated worker employment second quarter, for the state, it's 85%. So if out of 3 local areas, the first local area negotiates 85%, same as the state, and local area 2 wants to negotiate 80%, well, we have to balance that with whether local area 3 can get to 90%, because overall as a state, we still have to meet 85. So that'll be part of the work that we do at IWD to make sure that we're balancing that out and making it as fair and manageable for every area as possible. And then the last thing that we'll do is, after the meeting concludes and after we've landed on those negotiated rates, you'll leave the meeting knowing what your negotiated rates are most likely. We will just issue you a letter with your final agreed upon rates, and we'll go forward. So when we do performance negotiations this February, we will negotiate for PY20, which is a little bit strange because we're basically halfway through PY20 right now. And then we'll also negotiate for program year 21, which will begin July 1st of 2021 and run through June 30th of 2022. So any questions so far before I move on?
Hi, Michelle, this is Heather. Are we going to talk about the committees with the boards today? I know there are a lot of people that are interested in that and not sure that they're necessarily wanting to know about performance negotiations.
We can sure talk about it when I'm done with this section. I don't have anything specific planned, no.
Thank you.
Hi, Michelle, it's Miranda.
Hi, Miranda.
Would we be able to get some type of report that shows what historically the performance data has been in our areas?
Yeah, that's a great question, Miranda, because part of the problem that we're going to run into, especially like for Mississippi Valley, is that there is no historical data, right? So what DOL has advised us to do is sort of create it, for lack of a better word, between what the performance data in the old Region 9 and the old Region 16 was. So that's part of what we're working on right now, and it's not going to be completely accurate because the performance data truthfully doesn't work by just taking old areas and smushing them together, right? But that's the best we're going to be able to do. And so, but I can definitely have our performance person resend out the data. So she does send it out quarterly, and I think it either has been coming from me quarterly or from Wendy Greenman, but I can definitely resend out like all of PY. I believe what we're going to use, I believe the statistical adjustment model is based off of PY 18 data right now, because at the time that was the most recently available data. So we can send out everything from PY 18 forward. Would that work?
That'd be great.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sorry, I'm just making a note. Okay. So what I've added here on this slide is a link at the bottom of the page here to the USDOL WIOA negotiations website. And this has a lot of information on it. It also has all of the historical data as well. It has, for all of the states, a lot of information. And if you come to this page, right, sort of in the middle under performance negotiations is this link for the PY 2021 negotiations tool. Now I'm gonna show it to you really quickly. Can you all see the Excel sheet?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. Now just keep in mind that this is the state level tool. So what we're working to do right now is bring this down to the local area level, but this is what the statistical adjustment model looks like. And so there's some sort of an informational page at the beginning and a summary page here at the bottom. And what you have to do is click on this little arrow next to the yellow box to select Iowa, because when you first pull it up, it'll be on California, which is slightly terrifying to look at and think is our data. But it'll walk you through, so your employment second, fourth, median earnings second, fourth, adult, DW, youth. And basically what this is telling you is this is what the model projects based on historical data, the state of Iowa should be able to attain for, the adult program or for the dislocated worker program, so on and so forth. Along the bottom, there's a specific tab for each individual program. And so this is really where the nuts and the bolts happen. And what happens is the reason that the application process for all of these Title I programs is so intense is because all of this information is being gathered when somebody applies and is enrolled into a program, right? What's their age? Are they male or female? What's their ethnicity? What's their race? How the most recent grade they've completed in school. And all of that data then gets compiled and put into each of these measures based off of your specific local area's participants. And then each one of these factors is assigned a coefficient for how impactful that data piece or that data set is on the overall equation. So if you're into statistics, this will be a super fun thing for you to play with. If you're not, like me, this just looks overwhelming and gives you a headache probably, as it does me. But it does work. And this is what the federal government uses to negotiate with the states. This is what they require us to use when we negotiate with the local levels. So I don't want to spend too much time on this because it's just a lot of detail that we don't need today, but I just wanted to show it to you so you had an idea. And I also just wanted to show you where you can find it if you feel the need to go and want to go find some additional information. So let me go back to my PowerPoint. One second. Okay, so I give you a whole bunch of information that's probably overwhelming and you probably panic a little bit, and I don't fault you for that. I would too. So I just want to go over a quick timeline for you so that I can reassure you that we will do this in the best way possible to make this an effective process for everybody. So really what we're going to do is work backwards from that February 28th to 2021 deadline, which is given to me by the Department of Labor, that we need to have completed all negotiations. So we will pencil in now the week of February 15th to schedule a meeting with each of your local boards to complete these negotiations. The meeting's probably no more than an hour. I know that seems impossible to go over all that data and information, but most of the work will be done ahead of time. And like I can tell you, when we negotiated for the state last spring, our hour-long meeting only took about 25 minutes. So it won't take up too much time in person there, but that's what we'll plan to do the week of February 15th. So February 1st will be the deadline for you to submit your proposed goals to IWD. We need that time in between the deadline for the submitted proposals and actual negotiations to, again, do that sort of work to figure out, where we can move up and down across different areas to still meet the state expectations. So we will provide you comprehensive training on how to use those SAMs more specifically on January 8th, which will be our first office hours call of the new year. So that'll be a Friday, January 8th, 2021. We'll provide more detailed training on the statistical adjustment model and negotiations in general. So by January 4th, we plan to send out those statistical adjustment models to the local boards. So you'll have it in hand. You can take a week to look at it and get a little bit familiar with it before we do the training on the 8th and be able to ask any questions. And then that would leave you about 3 weeks, maybe a little more, to do your work at the local level to decide what you want to submit for your proposed rates. I know that that's a pretty condensed timeline, but again, we don't have a lot of wiggle room based on the expectations of the Department of Labor. So this is the best that we can do to make sure that everybody has all the information they need to be able to make this a successful process and meet the deadline from Department of Labor. So I think that's my last slide. It is. So any questions I can answer today about the performance negotiations. Again, this is really just designed today to be a heads up so that you know what's coming down the pipe, but the more specific information will begin in January. Okay, well, I don't hear any questions. So really quickly, one more update that I wanted to give you, the local plans, which is something that we've been mentioning at the last few calls, will be the next sort of big thing as well. And so I just want to let you know that the core partner team is still working on finalizing that guidance, and they plan to get that out by December 1st. So within the next couple of weeks, we should have comprehensive local planning guidance for you. And we will be able to talk about that at our next office hours call, which won't be till December 11th because of the holidays. So that's all I have today. I know that, Heather, you mentioned committees, so let's talk about it. What do you guys want to talk about? I'm sorry I don't have anything prepared, and I feel like I might have said I would, and I apologize. That did not happen, but I'm more than willing to take questions, and we can start jotting down anything that would help for you all.
It looks like we have a good representation for the disability access committees, and that's something that I think a lot of us have been wondering how that will look, especially for the local areas that have consolidated regions, how we can have those committees working together effectively and also fit within the plan. I think Dave Mitchell has had some ideas on how he would like to see the disability access committees moving forward. And we talked a little bit about that 2 weeks ago. And so we were really curious to see your thoughts on that, Michelle.
Yeah, I think that the last time that we spoke, I was talking about how there needs to be one disability access committee. And then I was told by several people that David has committed to maintaining the individual disability access committees basically for the AJCs, not the local area. So I will be honest and say, I think that makes a lot of sense, but I also have yet to determine how that fits into the law, right? Because in the law, there's one local board, and, a committee is for the board, not for the office or the AJC. So there's still some internal work that I need to do working with David and my team to figure out exactly what that looks like. I think for now, if everyone's continuing to work on the disability access committees that already existed and keeps doing the great work that they were already doing, that's great. And then we'll have to figure out how we can maintain that structure, but be compliant with the law at the same time. So I'm still working on that.
Thanks for that. I don't know if anybody else has any comments or questions, or Miranda, I think that you've probably had some meetings in your area. If you have any experience with that you'd care to share.
I actually haven't had a lot of experience with the DACs because the old Region 9 DAC hasn't met for what I can tell is probably 6 to 9 months. So I guess that's my concern with having the two separate committees, one for each AJC, is maybe that, you know, they're not fulfilling the same roles within the local area. And as we know, the board's ultimately responsible for those, the accessibility of the centers. And I've been kind of trying to communicate with them to see if those accessibility issues have been addressed. But yeah, it would be great to get some guidance on how it actually fits into the law, the way that VR has got it set up right now.
Yeah, absolutely. We will work on that and get you some guidance. I can't promise it's going to be tomorrow or soon, but it's definitely on our radar to figure out sooner rather than later.
And just to put another person on the spot.
Hello?
I can hear you, Michelle.
Oh, you can? Okay. I'm so sorry, Heather. All I heard was just to put another person on the spot, and then I lost my audio.
So that was with Monica Brockway. So Region 10, now East Central Iowa, Holly and Monica have worked together for years. So they might have.
Heather, you went on mute.
Sorry, new keyboard. So trying once again. So we do have some regions, old regions that are now local areas. Region 10 is one where they have two offices. So I think Monica and Holly might be able to shed some light on how they've managed to work together with one disability access committee, and then Jeannie will be experiencing a merger with 3 regions. So they might have some ideas too.
Sure. Heather, do you want me to just chime in and kind of share a little bit about how our region operates?
Sure, yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. So we meet regularly as a region and discuss things that impact Iowa City specifically, Cedar Rapids specifically, but more importantly, just how our services are coordinated, how we're working together with resource referral, and providing the best level of service to our job candidates among partners. And so we don't, you know, we're focusing across the system. And so those conversations are fluid. And of course, this last year has been challenging, but we're continuing to meet and things go fairly smoothly. So we're just sharing best practices and making sure that our teams collectively as a region and, you know, Iowa City, Cedar Rapids specifically are working through changes and that we're communicating as leadership and messaging out appropriately as we need to. We also work together providing trainings. So we come together as a region, Kirkwood, Iowa Works, IDB, VR, all of our staff get together. We'll have 200, 250 people in a room pre-COVID to train on some disability related topics. So focusing on our deaf, hard of hearing population, accessibility accommodations, and what that looks like, how we can provide the best services to people with disabilities in our region. So that's really kind of my role as Title IV and representing the Disability Access Committee on the leadership team in our region and making sure we're really following, you know, the strategic plan effectively and implementing the things that we've, identified as being important. That's what I've got.
And Monica, you said you're from East Central Iowa?
Yes, Iowa City.
Oh. Okay, great. And so and just for my own purposes, does that area have one disability access committee that serves both the Cedar Rapids and Iowa City office, or did you have two separate DACs?
We have one.
Okay, one, perfect. So yeah, and I think agree. I mean, I think it's working well. Everybody, I think across the state can agree that the disability access committees have done some great work and have been very effective. And I don't want to change that in any way, shape, or form. So I would encourage you to keep doing the work that you're doing with the groups that you're doing it with. And then I will, reach out to David, because I believe, and Mike, jump on here if you want, but Mike told me that they actually voted on this at a state board meeting last year. And I feel like I've been at every state board meeting, but I do not remember this happening. And so, I don't want to undermine anything that the state board has voted on. And we can get back with David, and just now that this realignment is complete and we're really moving forward working in these local areas, and we have an understanding of how these things need to work, we might revisit that with him. But until that happens, please continue to do the work that you're doing with the groups that you're doing it with. And, we'll try to get on that right away. Mike, does that sound right?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just share, there was a lot of discussion with the State Disability Access Committee, which David oversees for the state board, and all of the members that are on that state DAC. As we were going through transformation, realignment, and how the local DACs would fit in and continue their work. And, the plan was taken to the state board where they voted on keeping the DACs tied to the AJCs. Whether that's right or wrong, that was kind of how the plan went. And there was a lot of reasons behind keeping them tied to the AJC, but then also those groups working with the Title IV representative that's on the local area board to make sure that all of the work that they're doing flows through and is communicated to the local board members and the CEOs. But I agree with Michelle. We can revisit with David and the state DAC board off the state workforce board, and figure out if there are some things that we need to tweak or what they'd like to do. But that's kind of how it all came about.
Hi, this is Jeannie Helling from the Dubuque Voc Rehab office, and just kind of wanted to pipe in a couple of things. I totally agree with Monica for the Disability Access Committee. Lots of great work that's been going on in the Dubuque region, one, which covers Dubuque and Dequoia. And we just met a few days ago on Tuesday, actually, and had this conversation. And I, as a supervisor and a leader of the program, I just wanted to get input from my committee members as to, how do they see the committee working? Do we get into a local level, or how would we make it work by having 3 different regions working together? And so most people really felt that we needed to still continue our local level of work that we're doing, and felt that it was important. However, we did think that it would be important to hear like what other regions are doing, and within that 3 region structure, how do we work together to maybe develop some new ideas and be able to hold different presentations or training within those 3 regions. So we kind of see a little bit of a mix going, but definitely feel it's important that we have that local level connection that we have. So, but we we continue to have a lot of training with our staff and doing a lot of great work and really paying attention to the strategic planning, especially on the WinTech information and going through that. We're working on the business engagement and case management and really identified a lot of different work that we want to do at the local level between Dubuque and Decorah. So, but I like hearing what I'm hearing from Monica, and Mike had some great points too. So appreciate that.
Yeah, and I'll just reiterate again, I agree with you in that local level work is done phenomenal things, and we do not want that to go away. So maybe what we're talking about is having to add a layer. You know, I think the issue is, and Lori, correct me if I'm wrong, but you know, for example, Northeast Iowa, where you're talking about, it's three old regions that are comprising one local workforce development area. So there's one board for that entire 20 county area. And for there to be a committee of that board, it would need to represent the entire local area. And so what does that look like? Do we add a layer that's like I'm just speaking off the top of my head right now, but is it a, you know, Northeast Iowa local workforce development area DAC that the 3 DACs report up to or something like that? I'm not sure, but we'll definitely figure it out. And we definitely want to maintain that local connection that you all have in the work that you've done.
And I think it's also important to look at, you know, what the different agencies are wanting as well as the board. I don't want to put our IVRS partners in a difficult situation if their agency believes that it should go in one direction, or if the state board is looking at a different model. And my fear with, you know, asking them to have different layers, how many extra meetings might that require, which is going to reduce the level of service that can be provided, which I'm sure that all of our Voc Rehab friends are going to say, yeah, I am already working a bazillion hours a week too. So making sure that it all fits and that it makes sense and it isn't a burden to have one more meeting is important. And I would hate to have a loss of connection with the local board if we move it to just a local center conversation, and that information isn't coming back to the board, because I think that is important to have the board's support.
Yeah, agreed. And it's not a decision that we can make today. Obviously, we need input from David Mitchell, and we also need the state board to weigh in, because frankly, they're the ones that require the Disability Access Committee for good reason, right? So we'll take this back. The feedback is really helpful from the different perspectives and what's important. And we'll work with those partners to, you know, come to a conclusion about this and get you some guidance, definitely. Are there any other committees related to the local boards that anyone wanted to discuss today?
I think that's the biggest one for me, just making sure that it fits with everyone's vision.
Yep.
I would agree with Heather. That's been a point of confusion between the two local DACs that I have now, is just how are we supposed to proceed? What's the membership look like, and just the expectations moving forward?
Yep, we will get on top of that. Okay, well, that I believe was my last slide. So are there any other questions or topics anyone wanted to discuss today?
Michelle, would it be possible for you to email the PowerPoint out from the last CEO office hours that has the monitoring time frame in it?
Yeah, and you know what? I have, I will, before the end of the day, I'll be sending that out in an email to everybody. And that one should be posted to the state board website by now. But if not, I will definitely email it out. Yep. Okay, well, as I said, just the next meeting would be scheduled for Friday, the 27th, but that is a state holiday, so we will not be working that day. So that means our next office hours meeting will be Friday, December 11th at 12 p.m., just like normal. And in the meantime, if you have any topics or ideas for discussion points, please let me know. We will also plan to have some more in-depth discussion about the local plans because that guidance should be out by that date. And we can talk through any questions you might have about that at that time. So thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day, and we will see you next week. Or no, gosh, we'll see you in a month. Crazy. Okay. Thanks all. Bye.